1, 2, 3, 4.
Hello, and welcome to Dopey, the podcast and YouTube show on drugs, addiction, and dumb shit. My name is Dave, and I've talked about Sober Buddy many times. It is an app that helps you stay sober. It gives you challenges, has a free sober tracker. In all the time that I've done Dopey, I've encountered this man. His name is Brad. He might be behind a lot of sober social media that you've encountered over the years. He is involved with Sober Buddy. Welcome to Dopey, Brad.
Thanks, buddy, for having me, man. Such a pleasure.
Now, before we say anything else, what things you should know about Brad? Number one, he's got long-term recovery. Number two, he's totally Canadian. Brad, show him your t-shirt.
Yeah, no, it's not Canadian. It's Hurricanes, but hockey. It's a hockey t-shirt.
Where's the Hurricanes from?
Carolina.
Why are you a fan of a Carolina hockey team if you're so clearly Canadian?
I lived there for like 13, 14 years. So
okay, so what's your title at Sober Buddy before we do anything else? So they know you're very official.
Yeah, head of social communications is the official title that I've been passed down.
Nice. And what are some of the sober social media pages that you are running and have been involved with in the past? Because you know a lot of the audience is you know it's a fluid bunch of people that interact together, and I'm sure you see the same people in a lot of different spots.
Yeah, I mean the two biggest ones is Sober Motivation on Instagram, and then the Sober is Cool community on Facebook. So those are like two of the main ones that we've built up.
And then one thing you probably don't know about Brad is he's a heroin addict. He's a felon. He's a former methadonian. But before we take that beautiful trip down memory lane, what got you into the sober world of social media and marketing and sobriety? Like, what made you want to do it?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if anything really made me want to do it. Sort of the journey I took is when I got sober, I went back to school. I graduated as an addiction counselor, and I worked at a treatment center up here in Canada for like 6 years as a clinical caseworker. And I used to work with youth, teenagers like 14 to 19. And after the 6 years, buddy, I was completely burnt out and like just full of anxiety. And a lot of people were dying and stuff, like young people. It's not good when anybody dies, but it's really hard when young people were dying from their overdoses and stuff that we were working with and stuff. It just heavy. So I quit working there, and I quit working there, and I it all started with a Facebook group, buddy. I wanted to support people and just create a network of where people could like support each other on Facebook. And I started a group called Recovery for the Beginner. And then we grew to like 10,000 members in like a couple of months. And it was just great. Everybody was like supporting each other, helping each other. And when I quit my job, I was doing like, I never got another job after that. Like I did work at a rapid access addiction clinic too at one point. But I never got another job after that. I just did like side hustles, man. And then I just, like, I became good at building audiences, connecting with people, communicating with people. And people started asking me like if I could help them with their missions. So I would say I never intended for it to be what it's become, but it just kind of came together, I guess, with sticking to something. So that's a long story short, but
when you did the Sober for Beginners, was it to start a business in the first place, or was it just because you wanted to create a community?
Yeah, I mean, I always had an idea of like what I could maybe do with it, but nothing ever took off. Like I tried a bunch of different things. I tried to do a recovery coaching. I created a program, like 21-day program for people. Nothing took off, man. It was hours upon hours and like months of putting in effort to do stuff. And I probably spent 10 times as much money on it than I ever made.
Right. I get that. When's the first time you got high?
For my memory's not too good around all that type stuff. I would say, buddy, it was probably when I was about 19 would be the first time.
What did you do?
You know, I mean, I had my pills. My whole thing was prescription pills. I mean, I had a surgery to repair hernia, and I got pills. I wouldn't personally, I wouldn't say like I was getting high then, but that was sort of like my first introduction to this medication that, you know, I mean, it did what it, you know, was described to do. It took away the pain, and not just the physical pain, but everything else that I had built up and, you know, held on to for so long. It solved a lot of those problems for me. They did a really good job.
What did they give you? What kind of pills?
Back then it was just like Percocet, buddy. You weren't, you know what I mean? Get that, and then if that didn't work, you could get other stuff. But I mean, that was like, you know, I mean, that's pretty good, man.
And what was the progression like? When did it become like recreational? Like when did it go from treating pain to like, oh, I like how that feels, and I would like to feel like that all the time, kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, when I really got into it, I didn't have any knowledge or like education or experience with what this stuff was going to do, right? My assumption was, I think like most people who get started into this is like, I was just naive to the idea of like, hey, this is prescribed to a lot of people and, you know, it'll be fine for me. So basically what I did is I conned this person in my life, and I knew that her folks had a bunch of surgeries and stuff, right? So I was able to like get a whole shoebox of this stuff like when I first started, and I was taking this stuff like I was in college at the time, and it was just a train wreck, buddy, from the beginning. And I would take this stuff, and like every day I would be taking more and more, but I had a, you know, ample supply of stuff. And then until I didn't, you know, a month later or something, you know, you start out with taking 3-4 pills a day, and then you're taking 10 pills a day, and then you run out of stuff. And then that's the only time when I hit Google to realize like what the fuck was going on with me.
Right.
As I felt like shit without this stuff. And then I had an old buddy that I used to hang out with, you know, every day in middle school. And I found out that he was doing stuff. So, I mean, that was kind of like my shift over to like, now I got to get this like on the street type deal, you know? And, yeah, I mean, but it doesn't take long, man. It didn't for me. I have to take long to get this snowball rolling.
I have 2 questions. First of all, what is a shoebox of Percocet? Like, how does that happen that there's a shoebox full of pills?
Yeah, I have to be careful with the story, Dave, to not give too many details for the others involved with the box of pills.
Because I've never seen a shoebox full of Percocet, and it's something that I could imagine in a dream or a sort of surrealist painting, some shoebox full of Percocet. But there's got to be some sort of, I understand you want to protect the pharmacy owner / sports medicine guy in the story or whatever the guy is. He's somebody who had access. It wasn't a literal shoebox full of loose pills, is what you're saying. It's a gigantic amount of pills.
Yeah, just a bunch of stuff that was left over from different things, right? So people wouldn't finish it, or, you know, I mean, that was like a common trend too for like medicine cabinets and stuff, like to find like left, you know, some people take it, and it's hard to believe, but some people out there don't finish it, you know, so there's some left over, and some people just don't like to take it, and, you know, stuff like that. So there was just leftovers, and then this was just compiled into this container, right? So then that's kind of where it started. There was other stuff too, Xanax and other stuff. I had really little awareness of what all this stuff was, but I was just kind of experimenting with everything. And the Xanax ended up, I only did it a couple times, but every time I did it, I blacked out. And it was that was actually probably the scariest thing, man, that I did. I had a job one time, buddy. I was flipping burgers at this place, man, and I took these Xanax or snorted these Xanax, and I drove into work, buddy, and I blacked out. I don't remember any of this, and I guess they had sat me down, and they're like, you can't work today and stuff. You got to go home. So I hopped in my car and like drove home. They called the police on me to, you shouldn't be driving and stuff. Luckily, I didn't lose that job. I mean, I was really good at the job doing it, but it's scary shit, man.
Sure. Yes. And your
for that
friend,
stuff. So
your friend who you said was dealing with the stuff, was he was dealing pills, or when did it switch to heroin?
yeah, yeah, he was dealing the pills, man. But I made the switch probably at the same time he did, right? I mean, the pills just dried up, became too expensive for dried up, and then I hear the story so many times. You go to your dealer, and then one day they got pills, and the next day it's like, hey, try this. I got no pills, and then that's where it starts, and then you can get. The time you can get a better bang for your buck, man, and who wouldn't be interested in such a thing, right? So you give it a go, man, and then and then it switches over to that, and yeah, I mean the risk really increased for me to to get stuff and to do stuff and to get in trouble and all the everything, right? And then you're spending $100 a day, and I was selling cars when things really got rocking, man. I was selling cars at the time, so it was good. I wasn't making a fortune, but I was had enough to kind of keep it going until I didn't, until you run out, right? You lost the job, and I had an apartment too, buddy. I got evicted from an apartment. I got kicked out of college. I lost cars, started crime. To kind of keep
started,
man.
You started, to kill the pain from a hernia. You're like, I picture you coming from a good family, like a middle-class Canadian family. Is that, I mean, I don't really know though. Did you come from a good middle-class Canadian family?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I mean, I live with my stepdad and my mom, and I have a twin brother too. And then I grew up pretty much in Texas and North Carolina. So I pretty much grew up, in the U.S. I moved there when I was like 6 or 7, somewhere around there. My mom's a nurse. My stepdad's tech guy.
So when
stuff like that.
So when you find,
it's good, man.
When you find yourself dependent on Percocets, you run out of them. You find a dealer who runs out of them, and he starts selling you dope. Were you scared? Did you know that this was a different situation? What was in your mind at the time? Like, how old were you? You were in your early 20s?
Yeah. In my 20s, yeah. And then, I don't know, man. I don't know if I put that much thought to it, buddy, to be honest with you. See, I was just trying to feel well. I
was a stoner in my late teens, early 20s, and I would do drugs at that time. Like I would do acid and I would, if I saw pills, I would do pills. And if I never had painkillers then though. But somebody brought heroin, and I loved how it made me feel. It made me feel like I didn't have to worry about anything. But I feel like when they talk about gateway drug, I feel like weed was definitely a gateway drug for me because I took it every day. I was hooked on the idea that I can take drugs every day. And in your situation, like you weren't like a recreational drug user, you got addicted to pills. But there must have been some weird change in your mind, right? Like to go from nothing to heroin, right? Or is that like too annoying a question, Bradley? Hold on, I'm going to shut the window because there's shit going on outside. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah, no, actually, when I think back, buddy, when you asked the first time of what I used, actually, the first drug I ever used was cocaine, man. When I think about it.
Tell me more. What was the deal? You were a kid?
Yeah, we were at a college party, and buddy had some there. Buddy I worked with there, he had some, and then we just did a few things. It's not like we sat down and finished off a pile or anything. But yeah, that was actually the first thing. And I never smoked weed. I probably smoked weed maybe 5 times in my life. And it was only out of like peer pressure. It was never out of like something I was ever interested in doing.
And something that I'm just
gig, right?
Something that I'm personally interested in, because Brad and I work fairly closely together. We have for a few months, and Brad has 2 kids, and he has a nice house and a nice life. Oh, 3 kids. I'm sorry, I missed one. There's 3 kids. He's a very, very doting father, responsible person, and the drug addict in you is kind of removed from the reality now. Like, what do you think, like, how did that happen, and how different were you when you were, using regularly?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's completely. I couldn't even look after myself. I lived on my brother's couch actually for like the last probably year of things, man. And I didn't have anything. Like I didn't have clothes. Like I had I had a suitcase, buddy. That's all I owned. It was a suitcase. I didn't have a job. I was a convicted felon too at 18, man. So it was hard to even get a job like at McDonald's, buddy. So it was a struggle. And I mean, all my own doing, not like blaming anybody or blaming anything else. I mean, it was all my own choices. But even going back a bit further, bro, this part of the story sort of throws people off. When I was like in high school, 17, buddy, I was just a behavioral wreck. Even before the substance use started, I was just getting suspended from school, causing problems at the house, not following rules. And I had some suicidal thoughts and stuff. I was seeing psychiatrists, doctors ever since I can remember. They were, I was on Adderall for ADHD. I couldn't pay attention. I couldn't pass a test to save my life. I never did homework once in my life. And it would just, but I mean, I guess it kind of brought me down too, right? Like everybody's celebrating in school, right? And I was like, I was the worst. The final exam, I would get stressed out and so anxious, I would just leave. I wouldn't even I wouldn't even finish it because I never studied. I didn't know anything for it, and that was hard. But I had all these problems, and I ended up in the psych ward 2 times. And the second time, my parents approached me with the idea to go to like a rehab. You need to go to rehab, not for drugs and alcohol or whatever, but for behavior. Like you're out of control,
right?
And they were gonna send me to this one place. It was like 3 months, and they were like, you have to say you want to go to it. And I'm like, no, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not doing anything. So my parents sort of stepped up the ante a bit. So they sent me to this place. It's called Peninsula Village. At 3 Sides Water. It's right outside of Knoxville, Tennessee, with a Tennessee River around it. You could never cross it. It was kind of like it was for the worst of the worst teenagers, buddy. And I was in the psych ward one morning, and I thought I was getting out soon. They took my shoes and everything. They thought I was going to run away, which I probably would have, but I don't know. Without shoes, it might be hard to make it to a hospital too far. So this private security detail picked me up to take. My parents hired them to take me to this rehab program, And I actually ran from them. I told them I had to go to the bathroom, and I went to a rest stop. And then I split. I ran from them, and they called in state troopers and sheriffs, and I mean everything. It was crazy, man. So I got caught probably about 2 hours after that. I was real messed up though because I ran through a beehive.
Oh my god!
And I got stung by I don't know, man, like maybe 50 bees. It hurt so bad. So I got sent to this rehab though, man. It was a strict rehab, lockdown in a basement with chicken wire on the windows, no talking, no sleeping, wake up at 6, sit on your bed all day, no reading books, no distractions, and it was a 12-month program. But I think I'm only mentioning this because even though my life went to shit after this program helped me really build a foundation when I was ready to put these tools into play. You know what I mean? It really helped me show what was possible. As I flourished in this program, I did really well. I reached a high level, and it was a really good thing at first. Though it wasn't. It was a nightmare, dude. That you wouldn't even be able to comprehend a place like this existed.
What was so bad about it?
Well, you're in a locked basement for 4 months straight.
How many people?
And you can't do anything. It would come and go, maybe 15 to 20 people.
And that was before was that before the felonies?
No, I was on probation at the time too. So I had misdemeanors. My first charges I got misdemeanors. My second charges I had to plead guilty to a felony or go to prison for a year. And then my third charges, if my dog busts out here, dude, he's going to take this whole setup down. I think my wife's coming up with him, hopefully.
What was the felony, though?
So the felony was a breaking into a motor vehicle. So I didn't even technically break into it. My buddy went into it. I was the lookout. And there was a guy, it was like 3 a.m. A guy was walking his dog. He's like, hey, so we split. And then as we split, I saw the cops coming, man. So we were like on the run, from them. But it was a small town, man. So there's only 2 ways in. So they just blocked the 2 ways. I called a girlfriend of mine at the time. I was like, you got to come grab us up. She come picked us up. And then right as we were leaving this little town, buddy, they lit us up. And we tried to come up with some sort of story. But I mean, it's, you're the only people out at 3:00, man, so hop in the cruiser. So yeah. I got charged with guilty by association, even though I didn't do it. I didn't even know that was a thing in that sense. But yeah, I mean, you learn some things the hard way, buddy. Right?
Yeah. And like, I know so many people that have broken into cars over the years and none of them had any consequences from it. So it's amazing that it was such a big consequence. And you were young, you were just young and dumb. With all due respect, because I think you're a very smart person. You know what I'm saying? So post that facility, what happened?
Then I got my own place after that, man. I moved out. That's when I started college. I started to go to a community college. I was like, this girlfriend of mine moved in. I was working full time. Things were good. But it's always that same thing, man. Things are good until they aren't. I was seeing a psychiatrist. I was doing my meetings. I was getting support. I was doing stuff, and I was taking medication for like anxiety, depression. And then I had this bright idea, buddy, that I didn't need to do this stuff anymore. And I stopped it all, like basically cold turkey, man. And things were still good for a little bit. It wasn't like a immediate fallout, but I started to take more risks. I didn't have a support system. I wasn't hanging out with the winners. I was hanging out with
the losers,
other people with no jobs and this and that, everything else. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say that in case they watch this,
Wow. How long were you, but before you even say another thing, how long were you on heroin for?
Buddy, it's a little blurry, man, but it wasn't like a long run. Maybe a year or so, and maybe on the pills and stuff for like 1 year, 1.5 years before.
It's so funny how it really
did the methadone after for a year.
Isn't it funny how those 3 years have really, in a lot of ways, defined your career? Like it was these weird, like the crime was. It seems like such a non-thing to have really impacted your life, because now you're not allowed to come to the States anymore, right?
Yeah, but that was for different. That wasn't for that.
Oh, what was that
when
for?
I got charged with the drug trafficking.
Oh, here we go. Where's the drug trafficking?
It's actually a pretty good story. Man, so I was on methadone at the time, and I was never like a big drug dealer. I mean, I would just do a little bit here to, get by. Most people do, but nothing serious. So this buddy of mine, he worked at Five Guys Burgers and Fries, man. JP, he was an older guy. And man, I used to hang out with him, and there was a big hustle back then, man, is writing scripts. So you'd have nurses write scripts, and if the medication wasn't like, a lethal amount, then the doctor's office might not call it back in to verify that script. So that's a long story short. And, he called me up one day, and he's like, yeah, I got buddy at the restaurant here. He wants to gather up whatever he can gather up. I'm like, I don't know. Like, it's not really my thing, but I was like, I could maybe use a few $100, whatever, So I got a bottle of pills, a little bit of cocaine, and something else. I can't even remember, but he sold it to this guy, and this guy was a cop. It's an undercover cop.
And that was after the methadone?
That was while I was on methadone.
Keep going. I get too hung up on the timelines, everybody tells me, but I want to imagine it. I like to imagine like where you are in your life when that happens. But I guess it's after most of the drugs were gone and you were on methadone, and you had an opportunity to make a little bit of money and get some drugs, basically.
Yeah. And like, it was a very expensive mistake to make at the time. So yeah, but that didn't. And then what they did after, his buddy was like, keep trying to do this stuff, but it just wasn't my thing. So I was like, no, dude, like I don't know if what he was thinking or what they were thinking or what they heard from the streets. I'm like, that is just, I don't have anybody. I don't have that, man. You know. So that was that. They kept trying. He kept trying. And then after that,
wait, hold up. They kept trying to get you to rat. They kept trying to get you to rat somebody out, is what you're saying.
No, they didn't arrest me right then. But I didn't get arrested for that till years later.
So how did that play out?
Trying to get more stuff.
Okay.
So what happened after that is I kind of went off the grid, not like because of this. I didn't know he was an undercover police officer until years later. So I kind of went off the grid, man. Like I was just kind of like depressed, and I was at my parents' place for a bit, but they kicked me out and stuff. They're like, I couldn't get a job, and I ended up, my parents had bought me a new car, buddy, like 10, 15 grand. Well, new to me, it was a pre-owned car. But when I got that felony, when buddy broke into the car and I was there, we parked the car like 2 streets over. The cops found the car. It got impounded. And I would have probably been able to go in there and pay like $500, but the police told the impound company not to release the car until I cooperated with them. So I didn't have any money. I didn't even have $30. So another long story short, the car was gone. By the time I went to the impound to try to pay the money, it was like a couple grand. My parents like, where's the car at? We just got this car like 3 months ago. Poof, it was gone, man. And it was humiliating, man. You know, I mean, you just like, my parents worked really hard for a lot of stuff for me. And it's like, it's just such a bum, dude. You can't even, you know, just keep it together or just be honest. You know, I told them it was in the shop and I couldn't pay the bill. And, you know, so they were just kind of, you know, I mean, there's other stuff too. They're just kind of tired of that, right? They're like, well, you know, you gotta start looking after yourself, buddy. So I went off the grid, man, and then I wanted to get off the methadone. So the methadone was killing me, man. The methadone, I had to drive to the clinic every day, 6 days a week. I had no car. It was 30 minutes away. I had no money. I had to pay $12-15 a day, which is like, is not a lot, but when you have nothing, it is a lot. And you have to get it, or else you just feel like you're going to die, literally. You probably won't, but it's really painful. And there were times where I went, you know, cold turkey for weekends, dude. And I mean, it was just terrible. It was a terrible setup.
You would get your, wait, hold on. Explain that. Why was the methadone so bad? Because you weren't getting doses regularly?
Yeah. I mean, it was just hard for me to get there every day. That was one part. The money was another part. I just didn't have $15 a day. I used to go to my parents' place like every night and do like 1 hour of yard work to get to $15.
You know, just to get how old were you then?
And I would walk, and then I was like in my 20s still, man, like early 20s.
I was in methadone in my early 20s too. It's scary. It's scary and it's hard to manage. I mean, I lived in New York, so I could walk to the clinic very easily. And, but there would be things that would impede me getting the methadone. And if I couldn't get the methadone, I would be so sick. And you're dealing with, you know, lifer types and you're young. I get what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean, it was good. It kind of got me up to heroin, but I never did the research there for the methadone, just like I did do the research for the pain medication. I went in there, I called them, yeah, come on in. And, you know, 20 minutes later, buddy, you're feeling better and you think this is the greatest thing. And it played its part, you know, for me. I wouldn't say it was like good or bad. It had its purpose. But it was tough, man. It was tough to do. I had a hard time keeping things together, you know, so it just kind of added another layer of stuff, you know, just already being irresponsible and lacking accountability. And they wanted me to go to counseling meetings, and I never went to the counseling meetings. And, you know, sometimes I would be doing cocaine, so I'd have dirty urine. And, you know, I was just like, I wasn't doing any recovery. I was just going to the methadone clinic, getting the methadone. I wasn't doing any type of recovery. So my life, in a sense, like, was better, but it wasn't getting better. Like, I was still miserable, and I was still like hopeless, and I was still living on my brother's couch, you know, and his bedroom floor. If he had people over, I would sleep in his bedroom on the floor, you know, like, I'm just like, and that's kind of when I was like, dude, I got to get rid of all this stuff. So then I reached out to my grandparents up in Canada. They drove right down to Carolina, picked me up, and I went to a detox place in Florida. and just got off the methadone, just cold turkey, man. With a little bit of the Suboxone sort of cocktail. And it was still terrible for months to come, buddy. And then is shooting it quick here. I went back to my brother's place. My grandparents were there, and they pitched the idea of like, why don't you come up to Canada and live with us? And at first it was overwhelming because I'm like, well, this is everything here. I've lived here for like my whole life, my friends, my family, everybody's here. I haven't lived there. I don't know anybody there. The cops were starting to show up too at my parents' place again. And I didn't know why, but they would call me and they're like, oh, you have a UPS package you got to sign for, it's worth $500 or something. And I'm like, dude, I don't have $500. I never bought anything. They didn't know where I was. So, and I wasn't driving around. I wasn't working. So, I mean, it was probably like just off the grid, and none of this was intentional. That's the way it played out. So my grandparents showed up at my brother's place at like 5 a.m. They're like, this is crazy. Like, we got to get out of here. Do you want to go with us? And I'm like, I grabbed like three pairs of underwear and 2 shirts and a pair of shorts. And I was like, let's go, try something different, I guess. So I went up there. I moved up there with them. And I got a little painting job for a year, and the methadone was killing me, buddy. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep for like fucking 3-4 months, lost 30-40 pounds. But I went, and then when I came back, that's when I got arrested for the drug trafficking stuff. I went to the airport. I was coming back to visit my folks, and some friends and stuff. And when I got off the airplane in Carolina, dang, the feds were there, man. That's when I got arrested for that stuff.
It's crazy because it's not like you're Tony Montana. How are they waiting for you at the fucking airport? Like, how does that even happen?
Yeah, well, when you go to customs in Canada, they have U.S. customs, so they pre-screen you. So I knew something was up because they asked me about 500 questions, none of which I knew the answer to. They searched all my baggage, and then they were like, "Oh, it's a big misunderstanding." Because I was like, well, I'm just going to stay here. And they're like, no, it's a big misunderstanding. You're ready. The flight's waiting for you. Let's rush you quick there. And then I had a layover in New York. So I'm like, if something's going to happen, I had a weird feeling, man. I knew something was up. I just didn't know how serious it would be. And I had a layover in New York, and I'm like, well, if something is up, I'm sure they'll be waiting here. I'm like, well, they're probably not going to. But no, when I got to Carolina, that's where they're waiting, buddy. So. And that's when I got charged with like 3 or 4 counts of drug trafficking, opium, cocaine.
Opium?
I was facing.
Was it real opium?
No, that's just what they call it, man.
Okay. Did you ever smoke opium?
And then I was
proper opium?
No, I never.
Okay.
No, never smoked proper opium. And then I was facing 20 years, buddy, for all this stuff. So.
And what happened?
What happened is I ended up doing a year. So I did a year. Basically, my parents hired my parents wouldn't help out at this point for a lawyer. My parents were done. That's it. My rest of my family kind of rallied together, and they put up like 30 grand for this lawyer. He was an ex-DA. I mean, he was a true legend, this guy. And I had to wait in county jail, buddy, for 8 months before I even went to court. And when I went to court, I had been to so many treatments, buddy. They had notebooks this thick, man. I mean, 5 of them saying, this guy is a drug addict. He's not a drug dealer, because that's what they were trying to paint, is like I was some sort of drug dealer. And it wasn't the case.
Well, you were a drug dealer, but you were much more of an addict than a dealer. I dealt a little bit of drugs too, but I was no real drug dealer. I was like you, but I'm with you. I'm with you on this story. And then where did you have to go to jail for the year?
So I went to, it was the, in Raleigh, buddy, Carolina.
And you followed the canes? Did you follow the canes while you were in prison there? Is that where you developed this crazy obsession with this hockey team?
No. I mean, I lived there for 15 years before all this happened, But no, I didn't watch any Hurricanes, buddy. You weren't watching Hurricanes. I didn't control the TV, man. I was just a small guy. I just followed the rules, man, and played chess and played cards and that type stuff, man. The TVs cause a lot of problems in jail.
Man. So you get out And like, you never really worked, did you ever work a 12-step program?
I've been to tons of 12-step meetings, man. I worked through the steps, at one point, and I like celebrate recovery meetings, smart recovery meetings. I really gravitated to more of a celebrate recovery thing. I like the community aspect and the Lincoln AA for me, man. I mean, I was 20 years old, buddy. I walked into a room and everybody had 20 years on me. And it was really hard to, want to go for coffee and stuff. And it was just hard for me to connect. I was really immature and stuff, and I really found a couple people, a little bit younger people, to celebrate recovery, and a couple of mentors, man. A couple of the guys, like our celebrate recovery there in Cary, North Carolina, we only had about like 10 guys, man, but a couple of the guys were like business gurus, man. So it was a little bit about recovery, but it was more about like life too, like life lessons. And I really like kind of clung to that because it was just what helped me, man, So but the jail story too, then after that I got deported after that, man. So then I went to court, man, after 8 months. And the way we did it is we did an open plea. So basically, the DA tells their side of the story. Your lawyer tells your side of the story. And this all happens within a matter of minutes. People think it's like TV. No, this is like your life, 20 years of your life is like discussed within like 90 seconds. And it was the end of the day. And it was the end of the day in court, and I'm like, I'm not even going to get a shot to go here, and you're in this little, they call it a bullpen, man, and there's people in there like getting 10 years and 5 years. You're crammed in here with like 100 people by the stress, the anxiety, and I mean, I thought I was going to pass out, man. And so it's an open plea. So basically, it's up to the judge to decide what sentence to give. You put it all in his hands right then and there, and I'm like, oh man, this is going to be, it's going to be rough, man. I never said prayers really much before, buddy, but I was saying prayers then, hoping somebody would listen. But yeah, he sat back in his chair, and I'll never forget it. He sat back in his chair, and he took his glasses off. He rubbed his eyes, put his glasses back on, and then he said like 8 to 12 months, man, Department of Corrections. And I was like, holy fuck, that's great. I still had some more time to do, but that was good, man. But I mean, the whole idea was I had to plead guilty to all these charges because they knew if I pled guilty to all these charges, I would be deported. So that was sort of the deal. And then after that, I got put in custody of ICE. So then ICE came and picked me up, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. And they brought me to another jail. And then that took about 3 months for me to actually get back to Canada. So every 2 weeks, they would bring me to another jail. And another jail, and then another jail, and then I ended up in downtown Atlanta. And let me tell you, that place is wild. And I ended up there, and then they never give you any warning when you're leaving, but they told me, pack your bags, buddy. U.S. Marshals took me to the international airport there in Atlanta, drove right in back by the plane, buddy, threw me on there, and one-way ticket home, buddy, and it was great.
And when you got to Canada, how much did your life... This is a crazy story, Brad. I really appreciate you taking the time to tell it. Because I know you don't tell this story so often, and I feel honored that you've decided to share it on our little show. Now, when you got to... And I also love the story about the mentors at Celebrate Recovery, because like the whole point with any program is to find something to care about and something to do and something to invest yourself into so you can get on a different path, and it sounds like that really clicked for you. And when you got home, or when you got to Canada, like what was your life like at first?
It wasn't much, buddy. I mean, I was just kind of happy to be home.
Free.
I remember my grandmother, they got me fish and chips, man. And I'll never forget that meal, fish and chips, buddy, because I was used to eating rice and beans for the last year, and the fish and chips, buddy, I mean, it wrecked me, if you know what I mean. So that was like a welcome home type thing. It was good, man. It was a slow start. I just tried to I kind of set some goals while I was in jail too. My mom would send me books, tons of books, man. I read Brandon Novak's book there too. I read a bunch of self-help stuff. I set a couple goals for myself. And even in jail too, I hung out with the old guys, get mentorship, learn from these guys, what to do and stuff. And then I just, probably within a couple months, man, I went to college. So I got a job flipping burgers, man. I always end up flipping burgers somewhere, So I got a job at this bar flipping burgers. I met a good crew of people there that were, good people, man. And it was, that was cool. And I started to make some friends and some relationships. I started to hit the CR meetings. Once I got to college, that was good. I finished college, and then that's when I got like an internship at this rehab. I thought it was the greatest thing in the world, buddy. I was gonna, help people and, stuff like that, and it was good, man. And then time went by, and shit, I got married and had one kid and had two kids and had three kids and bought a house. And
you never did drugs again?
All kinds of stuff, man.
When you got out of jail, you never
Sorry?
did. You never did drugs again. You never relapsed. You never did anything.
No.
And no drinking either.
No, man. No. Once you go through all that stuff, man, I just don't. I kind of lost the interest of all that stuff, man. I just people are like, do you worry about relapse? Worry about this? Everything is always there, but I think a big thing that fueled my addiction is I just had nothing to lose, really, other than my life. I didn't have any belongings. I didn't really have any good relationships. So it was pretty easy to just ruin my own life over and over and over again. You know what I mean? But now it's there's a lot of people depending on what I do. So I'm just like, well, I'm going to throw all this away for just 10 minutes of, 10 minutes of bullshit.
No, I get it.
It's not, I had a surgery and stuff. I had a wisdom tooth that was impacted. So they had to break my jaw and stuff. So, I had to get medication for that, be put to sleep and, Demerol and, felt good while it went on, but, it wasn't like this big thing where it's yeah, let's go and fuck up your life again, dude. That never became a good idea, so.
I never heard of Celebrate Recovery. Can you tell us anything about it?
Yeah, Celebrate Recovery is more of a faith-based, and I'm not even a huge faith-based type guy. I'm more of a spiritual, sort of person about, different higher power and all that stuff. But yeah, Celebrate Recovery is at a church, and then they have a 3-hour meeting structure. So before the meeting, they'll do a testimony. They'll do some music. They might do a teaching, learning or something. That type format. And then you break into small groups. So it's just separated by gender. And it's separated by what you're struggling with. They have a codependency group. They have a couple other ones. And then they have an addiction group. But I always found it to be real small and, just able to connect with, 5 or 6 people. 10 people was a big meeting. 5 or 6 people that you could connect with. And then afterwards, what was really cool is they have a community thing. So most churches have a meeting area, with a kitchen and some chairs and stuff. And you'd meet up there and have pizza or coffee, and you just kick it, right? You just hang out.
When's the last time you went to a meeting?
I would say probably 3-4 years ago.
Right.
My buddy did a speaker meeting. I went there, to Joy's speaker meeting. When I worked at the rehab, we used to take the clients to different meetings. For them, I've done some smart recovery online meetings. It's an online chat forum with a facilitator. And then actually one of the coolest things that ever part of my recovery is I got to be part of this initiative program here in my community. It's called the Rapid Access Addiction Clinic, and it's a walk-in type clinic. And I was a peer support worker there, which was the best job I ever had. And I used to work there part-time for this nonprofit, and it was really cool because people could just walk in and get services. So we had me, a peer support worker, so I could relate with people, with most people where they're at. And then we had a counselor on staff too. So then they would meet with the counselor. And then we also had a doctor. So they would meet with the doctor for an hour. And this is all walk in. So people are I want to quit today and I want to get on Suboxone. Within an hour, buddy, we'd have a network of people that they could meet with and start their plan. We also did a lot of stuff for alcohol, naltrexone, I think it's called.
Yeah.
For alcohol, and then build, plans for people. And we did all this on the fly, so, quick for people because, just to make them comfortable. So that was really cool. It's still running, man. It's still doing great. They're opening more, so it's really cool. No charge for it, nothing, free.
So what's that called again?
That's called a rapid access addiction clinic.
Is that just in Canada?
Names. Some people, I think they probably have something like it in the US.
Wow. I think that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
And I think your story is hardcore. What were you about to say, Brad? I'm sorry.
Oh, and then I actually wanted to get some experience at a what do you call it? At a safe injection site, but I never got the job. I went for 2 interviews and I wasn't cut for the job, buddy, so I didn't get it. But I wanted to I kind of had this phase for a bit where I wanted to like see different things, work different places. But after I didn't get the job, I just kind of beat myself up and I was like, nah, I'm not doing that anymore.
When you were using,
when
you were using, did you use needles?
No, I didn't. No, I would just snort the heroin and pills too. Bunch of Tylenol.
It's
Terrible,
amazing.
buddy.
It's amazing because your story is so it's rough and it's quick. It's like, and then the recovery has been. You have like what, 17 years, 16 years?
No. January 11th, 2010, buddy. I used that for my recovery date. That's the day I got off the plane and got arrested. And I used that. It's not like technically my sober date, but that's like the date where things changed. My mindset changed.
Right.
It wasn't just about, for me, it wasn't just about the drug, not doing the drugs anymore. It was more about like you got to do something with your life or else you're going to be in prison or in a grave. So like put some effort to like see if you can do something. I never believed in myself that I could, but it was like, you got to see if you can do something. And if you can't, then, fuck it. You'll
learn that too.
You'll have a way out, in prison or whatever, some way you'll stop. If you don't do it, the other 2 options are going to suck. And I really hated being in jail. Like it wasn't terrible, but I just hated it because I'm like a mover and a shaker. I like to do stuff, create stuff, make stuff, help people. And you just can't, you can do it on a small scale, but you can't, do it on a big scale type deal. So I really hated that part of like kind of not being able to do that stuff and like, use the washroom in front of people and have a shower and stuff like that. I just really didn't enjoy that, and I always keep that fresh, man. Like, you don't want to, I don't want to do that shit again, So
right. And you don't have to,
keeps me on the straight, man.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And what was I going to say? Did you use in jail at all or no?
No, I didn't have any money.
Yeah. I only did a couple of nights in jail and it was in like New York City Tombs, whatever. Like it was not jail. So I appreciate your story, Brad, and I appreciate you telling the whole thing, and the stuff you do now is so great. I mean, obviously, I love working with you with Sober Buddy, but just I love, you connect thousands of people, and I'm sure it feels good, right?
Yeah, it is nice, man. It was really weird, actually. This guy that I grew up with, I used to date his sister. And we were never on good terms. Him and I, we just more him not liking me than me not liking him. But I actually did a post on the Sober Motivation, man, and this guy messaged me, and he's got like 2 years or 1 year sober now. And I was just like, this is wild, man. I never thought for one he would do it, and he never thought for one I was gonna get anything in my life figured out because I wasn't at the time. And that kind of blew me away. But yeah, it is nice, man. It's also hard too to hear a lot of people are stuck, like a lot of people are stuck with what to do and, whether they can do it. And it's tough, because, and I've done it for so long that, some people have died from overdoses, and some people have done well. Like people from 3 years ago will message me like, thank you so much. You know, and it's not me doing anything. I'm not like trying to be like, hey, this is me. I don't take any credit for anything. People got to do the work. If one of the things you see sparks something in you to do it, you know, friggin' right, you know, but it's not me doing, I'm not getting I can't get anybody sober, you know? So I just tell the people like, man, you guys are doing it. Be proud of yourself. So it is cool, man.
I think it's great. And I've enjoyed getting to know you over the past year. And I think you're a very inspiring Canadian character for the Dopey Nation. So thank you, Brad. I
hope so, buddy.
And everyone should know that Sober Buddy is a sober app that you use to. It's like cognitive behavioral therapy. They have a free sober tracker. I actually use the Sober Buddy app every day in some weird shape or form. And is there anything you want to say, Brad, before we go?
Yeah, I mean, I think we would love to have the support with people to, you know, check us out with Sober Buddy. We've been working on it, you know, for years. Like this isn't something that somebody woke up with one day and it all came together. It's been years, and we're trying to get the word out there about, you know, helping people. And, you know, that's the main thing, is to try to help people and try, maybe for people to add another tool to their tool belt of stuff that they want to do. And the challenges, you know, will help you keep an open mind for stuff. And, you know, you can learn a lot. So, I mean, hopefully you guys can check it out and show us some love.
There it is. Let's show Sober Buddy some love and show Brad some love. And thanks, Brad. And was it did you have the best time of your life on Dopey or what?
Yeah, it's incredible, buddy. I think, like I told you yesterday, I think I'm getting COVID again, man. I'm just like stuffed up and everything else, but like I think we did okay, man.
I think you were great. I think you did great. And Brad often calls me legend, which I feel like he's totally patronizing me. So let's know the truth, Brad. When you call me legend, is it because you think I think I'm a legend? Why do you call me legend?
I know you're a legend. Thinking about it.
Oh, you bastard. Fucking, this has got to be some weird double whammy Canadian stuff happening. But thank you, Brad. I appreciate you coming through. I appreciate you telling your story. It's a fucking powerful story. You know, you often like keep it hush hush, but you've been through it. You know what I mean? And the fact that what you're doing is connecting people is amazing.
Yeah, thanks, buddy.
Sure, Brad. So we say stay strong, Dopey Nation, and fucking toodles for Chris. And thanks again, Brad.
No, baby, I'm face down on the floor. No, baby, please, sir, can I have some more? No, baby.